Hello and welcome to Season 4 of the Dirt Racing Series. You're looking and going to be following the Silver 3 category, which is the highest silver category today, and we're on the first race of this new series. It's going to be downtown Dolphin, the clockwise course. And I'm going to get some information up for you now to cover it. So for those not aware of the course, it's a fairly flat course. We're going to have three segments, shall we say, two different segments. We've got first cross the line, which is going to be on the start-finish banner. You'll see it probably straight ahead out the pen. And then the last segment on the penultimate lap, lap 15, which is going to be the FTS segment up the climb that you might be able to see in the top left-hand corner. It's a short kicker, probably only 10 meters of gain, if that. But it'll really hurt riders going into the finish and be a good opportunity for long attacks, especially in these low categories where the speeds are a little bit lower. There's a bit less draft. There's much more opportunity for people to go long from there. As we've always had with the Dirt Racing Series, points go much further back, so every rider counts. You have 8 riders able to start the race for a team. Top 4 riders' points count towards the team total. You can see all those points scoring towards the right of your screen. We'll jump onto the live stream now. We've got 1 minute 20 to go to the start. Just talk you through some of the teams that we've got with us today. So the Silver 3 category is a new category system using the Zwift Racing app categories. That means that riders are ranked based on previous results. There's a benefit added for their podium places, so people who keep consistently winning will move up no matter what. And so you do see some riders massively outperforming, possibly due to being able to choose races at the moment that aren't using that system. So they have very high points in their category, but generally it's working very well. And Silver 3, which we're following today, is going to be any rider with less than 1,200 points, but usually above 1,000, as that would be Silver 2. But riders can always race up a category. They're free to race any category above their ranking, and we have seen quite a few doing that to stick with their team, and many very successfully. Well, nice thing about this is there are a lot more categories open, and so the gap between them isn't as big, and there's a bigger stretch of abilities. It's not just who has the biggest sprint. There's a big stretch out in terms of watt per kilo, which means more 5-minute gaps and allows hopefully for more breakaways. So as we're on today, we've got a few seconds to start. We'll talk you through some of the general stats of the rides about once we're jumped on. So generally the rides in this category are C's and D's. I think there might be 1 or 2 B's. I think in that itself it shows the vast difference between the watt per kilos and 20-minute power numbers of some of these riders. See a lot of the electric spirit riders. You see the orange and white stripes there across the screen. It's very similar to the dirt kit, which says dirt up the middle sideways, so I think that's fairly obvious to most of you. See HCT in the green. They have a couple of very big teams. We've got Rhino Racing, see Team NL, Dutch team. The main and only, I think, Dutch team, which is this kit here. See the blue and orange across the shoulders. So you won the riders. Pablo from HCT just leading it out quite hard. And because you've got this big variety in terms of watt per kilo numbers and, different strengths, rather than, everyone is roughly at the same kind of fitness level in these divisions where you have, or in these big events where you have thousands upon thousands of racers. In this case, there are big differences across 20-minute as well as sprints. Lots of different tactics are open, and so we might see slightly more aggressive starts coming into play as people try and drop other riders from other teams quickly. So you've got 3 off the back already. And so if you can drop that 4th or even 3rd and 2nd rider of another team, that's going to be big points. As the finish points go all the way back with significant gaps between each place. Or every 10 places there's a 5-point drop off. So we're currently on lap 1, as we call it, and we'll enter lap 2 next. So this first time through the start finish banner isn't going to be for any points, but the second time and 8th time through will be first across the line points. I'll just explain them to you quickly here. The first across the line is just the top 10 riders through. But rather than some series where, you know, it's 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, a very linear progression, this rewards being 10th and 9th versus 11th or 12th. And it's not just one or two really strong riders taking all the points. The points go very deep back and every single rider counts. It's the best team rather than, you know, the best one or two individuals that tend to win it and decide the placing. So it's very important to try and get all 8 rides out. If you can, it opens up a lot more tactics to you. Able to sacrifice some to close gaps or try other things out. See this nice new purple Galaxy kit. Team that's been heavily recruiting of late. It's a very nice kit. And they've done very well getting some very strong riders joining in. It's great to see them on board for this series. Haven't quite got the details, Tam, but I think there's somewhere around 4,000 riders signed up this season, which is absolutely crazy. Really strong showing, but it goes to kind of show the importance. Every team that races tends to come back. I'd strongly, strongly recommend it to anyone. It's a much more team-based effort than other series. There's a great kind of atmosphere around it, shall we say. Lots of riders just have a bit of a chat when they can in a race, which is very rare given some of these courses are absolutely brutal, which I'm not thanking the organisers for. But it does make for good racing. But yeah, 4,100 riders so far, 610 teams. Absolutely nuts. And it just goes to show how everyone seems to love this and keep coming back for more. So, second lap now, we're just approaching the little kicker. And so in the I don't like using the term low, but in the lower ranking categories, riders tend to generally be a bit slow, especially in terms of punch. There are some very strong sprinters out there, but their ability to do it regularly diminishes quickly. And so on a course like this, you might see it being a bit more attritional than the 2 races we watched earlier. See, generally everyone's staying together, nothing crazy, but this way we see riders possibly starting to go for a breakaway. See a couple of riders hitting red numbers there. And you see everyone's starting to set PRs, and that's a useful thing you can do is attack while those PR numbers. See one of the Rhino riders going very hard there. Fuller, crushing it. You see, it's doing double his FTP, hence why he's out the saddle, or was out the saddle there, and he's got a big gap on the group. And it's one of the few tactics I've seen work, especially the old pack dynamics. There aren't many places to break away on the course, but going relatively hard up the climb, but then really kicking at the downhill where everyone else slows can work wonders. See him starting to accelerate again. He should hold this gap if he's got enough energy left all the way to the line. We're going to see riders behind start to ramp it up into the 8s and 9s. See a couple of the HCT guys going, lots of Team NL, Dutch riders, Team Netherlands around there. See it coming to the line. It's managed to hold off at the front. We've got one of the dirt riders coming through quickly, but it's going to be big points there for Team NL. 4 riders in the top 10. 2 of the dirt guys, 2 of the Rhino Racing, 2 HCT. Strong, even balance between the teams, which is always great to see. And that's what the importance is. It's important to pack out that top 10. Yes, first, second, third are great, but the teams that can get good, well, regular, we'll say, scoring, really have the advantage of those around them. It's not going to necessarily decide the difference between first and 5th or 6th, but when you're fighting between 1 or 2 or 3 other teams, it can really make the difference in places at the finish of a race. So saying one of the places to attack was just after the kicker. You can attack up the kicker, but everyone's expecting it. And in races like this, see how stretched out it's got from there. Lots of riders kind of just clinging on. One of the perks of this new draft dynamics is the draft does go much further back, and the riders there are taking full advantage of it. Some of them definitely out above the old 5 meters as we hit the climb. This is where the riders really need to kick on hard, close the gap as quickly as possible, and get back into the benefit of full draft. It might be one of the Southborough Wheelers, SDW, oh no, it's HCT and Team NL rides. Yeah, it was one of the Southborough District Wheelers, London-based team. just off the back. It looks like they're not quite making it on, just settling down. At this point, there's still quite a distance to go, so you just want to get a little group with you. Be much better working together, even if they're, they are your opposition. You don't have them on chat like many other teams will do. You generally get a bit of an understanding with the riders around you, and it's always in your benefit to try and work a little bit and hold off any groups chasing you from up the road. So now, next segment up's lap 8, so we've got a bit of a lull through here. Be interesting to see if any teams try and push the pace. We haven't really seen it so far. We've seen a couple of teams, especially in the Platinum Plus categories, having individuals do a little burst, but no one's really sent it between these two and tried to go long. It's one of the great opportunities too, because it's so far away from the finish so early in the race that there's a chance it'll stick. And especially if you're one of those, more aerobic riders towards the top of your category in what per kilo or raw power, it's a great time to just try and sneak away. Because people don't want to react. They've just done a few efforts, wanting to sit up, and they think it's going to be far too far to the finish, and potentially it is, but this is where it's worth giving it a little try, seeing what happens. At worst, it just gives you information about who's going to react, what's going to happen. So again, the other place to attack was just there. There's a little, I don't want to say little, there's two bends, two straights. As most of this course is bends or straights, like most things. There's two slight uphills, so when you come to the start-finish banner, you turn left, and then on the right-hand turn after that, it starts to go 1-2% uphill. Then you turn right again, there's a little 1% uphill, and then you get onto the downhill run now. Little bit of flats, and then into the climb. And just on those uphill sections, the 1-2% is a great place to attack. It's not much of an advantage, the group doesn't slow down that much, but every little helps, and people aren't expecting it. They expect people to attack hard up here or possibly over the top of here. Definitely not into the downhill, and that's why that works. And so those kind of unexpected places are becoming the norm of sorts. It's a bit of an irony in a sense, but it's definitely the place where you can get away from experienced groups and make things happen. And one of the things you tend to see is on the flats, if people attack, people don't know to react. Your main opposition are going to be like, oh, he's attacking on the flats, that's so stupid. And so they won't chase you down. You might get a couple of people trying to, but if you go aggressively, no one necessarily wants to. And doing on that 1-2% section, you're going to have much higher speed than the group going into the downhill. So that doesn't necessarily help them chase back on. And then you're going to build speed and kick up that climb pretty hard. And that's where the real advantage is. The group on the climb are just trying to do as little as possible. There's obviously a bit of nervousness. No one wants to get caught out by each lap. So you see people going into the 4s, 5s, 6s, depending on the category. But, they're not going to be doing red numbers or even approaching red numbers most of the time up there. And so if you can, it's 15 seconds. Almost everyone in this field is going to be able to do red numbers for 10, 15 seconds. Be a very tough effort for them, possibly a max. But, even if they're doing 7, that's going to be a huge advantage over the group on such a kind of relatively slow speed section. They're going to take time out. If they can keep working over the top, they're going to take time into the downhill. Maybe this last little bit in start-finish band, the group will start to catch. But again, then they're into the flats again. They're into the uphills and they can make more time. And generally, I feel if you can keep a 4 or 5 second gap through that start-finish banner, you can stay away for the rest of the race. And it's that 4 or 5 second gap that people don't want to chase. 2, 3 people will jump across. They can do that in 20, 30 seconds, sometimes even less. But when you're starting to have to do a 30-second to a minute effort to get across, people don't want to. They want to save their legs for the finish. Just taking a little look back at what we've got further down the road, looking about 40 in that front group, 43. We've got this little group of 3 that we saw forming earlier, still sticking together and working. And one of the rides I think has been lapped behind. It's going to be a tough old go for them. Wobble Cycling Club potentially, WCC. And one of the Team NL riders, another WCC and Galaxy riders. So they've got a little bunch of 2 there. I'm just going to reel in the guy ahead. In that group of 3, their aim's just going to stick ahead. There are some points available for them. You know, they're going to have an advantage if they can just keep away from all the individual chase riders. But one thing they have to watch out for is when the group starts grabbing onto those chase riders, some of them will be able to stick in. And it's going to be a significant speed advantage going solo being in that group. Even if you can only survive a lap or 2 with the group, it's worth it for some of those chase riders to really just rest up, not do too much as you see the group getting within, you know, a quarter of a lap of them, and then just take advantage of the group going round the course, use their speed and catch on to anyone up the road. Far too many riders see the group coming and just let it slide on through them, and it's just a waste of essentially what would be free draft. They could probably hold the same numbers that they're doing, but at 3, 4, 5 kilometers an hour quicker, which really adds up if you can hold there for a lap or 2 in a 16-lap race. Just going through the teams for you. Have ATGNI. Haven't noticed. Oh, there we go. SST, ATGNI, look to be in the black kit. Got 4 riders from what I can see in the front group. It's good for. That's kind of what you really would hope to have, especially less than halfway through the course. 11 laps to go, 5 down. So, you know, plenty of opportunity for them. We've got Down and Dirty Condors. You can see in the Dirt Community orange kit. If I actually get the camera the right way around, you'll be able to see the dirt written across it. One of the 3 dirt kits, although one has just been taken out of circulation, so you'll no longer be seeing quite as many of the black dirt kit as you're going on to the community kits, which is this orange kit and then the pink Mums Inside Riders Training Mert kit. We've got Galaxy, as we talked about earlier, in this lovely purple kit. I'm very much, as soon as I'm back on the bike, going to be going out and trying to get hold of. And we've got HCT in one of the basic kits, basic 2 I believe, if I remember correctly. We've got PCH, which I believe is in the cross, yeah, you can see it, M-Stucker, it's a kind of red style cross, white corners. And Southborough District Wheelers in the Bumblebee S kit, as you can see Clinch there in it for them. Electric Spirit in their trademark orange and white. Very strong team who have pushed on. It's one of the things we're seeing a lot recently, you know. Sometimes people go on all the Facebook pages, etc., on Discords with Zwift riders, etc. You see people constantly posting, oh, come join our team, come do that. Every time someone posts, oh, I'm looking for a team, you see 3 or 4 of them instantly on it. I'd be like, oh, what's the point? You know, like half of them don't respond to you, but you know, it adds up. We see with Galaxy, fairly newly formed team, and they've really taken off in numbers. And Electric Spirit, one of those as well. They were constantly recruiting on those pages, and they've got a great community together. Some really lovely guys starting off creating the team, and it's just gone on and on. They've created a series of their own. We've got one that follows the ZRL races. We've got a couple of I think they had one midday one every single day, just a short punchy course around European lunchtime. And they've gone from being, you know, new team about 2 years ago, maybe 2.5 years ago, to being a team that you're regularly seeing towards the top of races, and in almost every single category. One of the newer teams in Silver 3 category that I haven't heard of before is TNLST Rider. I'm not sure what kit they're in. I can see Stride. That makes more sense. See him in the grey kit towards the front, the Garmin kit. I only see one of them in the front group, which is going to be a bit disappointing for them. I'm not sure how many they've actually got racing today. But again, it's always great to see new teams joining us. And we've got WCCLL riding in the I'm not quite sure what jersey. I haven't actually seen any of their riders yet, but they might be here, we can hope. And then we've got the Rhinos in the classic woolly Rhinos in the classic Rhinos kit. It's fairly obvious. Nice big letter at the back telling you who they are. And they're a very strong team across the board again. One of a relatively new teams. I don't think I say new because, you know, in Zwift, it's not been around for that long. There are some people who have been here since 2016 or so, but fewer and further between. You get a lot of rides starting around the start of COVID. So a huge uptake. I think we have finally surpassed some of the max Zwifters that we numbers. So, you know, the highest number of rides on at one time since we saw in COVID. I'm not 100% sure on that, but we're getting up there. See regularly 12,000 riders. I know the peak's somewhere around 40, 50,000 or so maybe even 60 now at one time. So here are some of the Velos WCC riders. So that's like WCC LL. It's in this red kit here. I'm assuming it might not be the Wobble Cycling Club, it might be the Welsh Cycling Club, given the number of dragons I'm seeing. That is the Condors. Let's see if we can jump back on the team there. So I'm not quite sure. They've got a mixture of riders there. Let's see if we can zoom in and find out any more on the kit. Yep, so it is the Wobble Cycling Club. So going back into progress, we're just about to finish lap 7. So next lap up, we're going to see first cross the line again. There's not been too much happening between these segments, which I don't want to say disappointing to see. I can be very sympathetic and feel for these riders. You know, they're working hard. They're not just kind of cruising. But, you know, I'd much rather see people trying stuff. You know, it doesn't always pay off, but in a 16-lap race, you know, 30, 40 minutes, there's time to make something, try, see if something happens. If it doesn't, sit back in, recover for 5, 10, 15 minutes. And, you know, if you don't try it, you're never going to know. If you don't, you know, you're just going to end up finishing the same place over and over again. So it's great to see people giving it a shot. And, you know, looking at the field, there's a couple of rides around 3.8, 3.7. So there's definitely Bs in here, as talked about earlier. Most of them are probably on the light side. I think we've got Catherine Murphy and Kirsty Reynolds from Team Electric Spirit. Here are definitely some of the Wop Kilo favourites, which will definitely pay dividends in later races when we get into some more hills and a bit more climbing than probably, I think it might be, is it 12? 12 metres a lap you gain on this course? Probably not what they were looking forward to the most, especially with a couple of riders approaching 100 kilos or above 100 kilos. This is definitely the course to favour them a bit more. Looking down, I think down to around 2.0, 2.3, 2.5 or so. So lots of riders, so it might be some of their kind of first set of racing with Bs, and for a D rider, racing out those Bs is going to be a tough old day. And that's what I said earlier, might be see a couple of more quick starts to try and drop them early. It's a bit brutal on those riders, but you can't blame the people at the front for wanting to push it and do that. And what's really nice to see is that group of WCC riders all going together and helping each other on to the finish. Again, another nice thing about this course is that while you might lap people, see one of the riders pushing quite hard there. On the Galaxy rides and Team NL going into Red Numbers, as we talked about earlier, along with one of the HCT guys. Again, it was a little bit late, so what you want to see going into that climb is kicking early. You can enter it, you know, 42, 43, 44 for these guys. If they can hold that speed up the first section, they're going to be flying and take a lot more time in the group to see the reaction from the Condors and Team Rhino. Seeing riders going up the road, wanting to jump on it. So again, this is foul points here, so that's why I saw it going quite hard. People are just jumping on the wheel. And we tend to see a bit more again with the lower categories, rather than just being a pure sprint. You get a lot more long breakaways, because the speeds are a bit lower, there's a bit less advantage to being in the draft versus out the draft. So you see Fuller just sitting in a little bit there, Stucker taking the lead, Rich sitting in for Condors. And now who's going to be the one to kick it across? Stucker doing well, but he's just been caught out there by being first on the road I see Fuller absolutely caning it through with 7 watts per kilo there. See a bunch of other riders. Team NL scoring really well again. HCT getting some more points as well, with 3 of their riders. I think 3 Team NL riders. That's one of the parts where positioning really comes into it. You don't want to be that lead rider going into that sprint. It's downhill, it's high speed, and even if you're doing 2-3 watts per kilo more than the riders behind you, there's a good chance they'll be able to come through, just by pure draft and momentum. You see a couple of riders being lapped here. It'll be interesting if they can hold on. And yet again, we've got a couple of groups off the back. You didn't see if anyone pushes the pace at the front. You see one of the Galaxy riders there, Southborough Wheeler, a dirt rider. Oh. But again, 3 watts per kilo, 2.7. They're not really working too hard to keep away. At this point, if you're on a group chat with your team, you're going to be thinking, you know, what's around us? Have we got all the riders here? See with HCT, they've got 5 riders in this group. They want to be doing a little bit of work. Same with dirt, they've got at least 4. Push the pace, stop those chasing from getting back on. The next segment's, you know, in 7 laps time, lap 15, so they can afford to do some hard work here if they have the energy. Try and eke that gap out and stop the chase pack getting back on. So you're getting back to chase pack. Electric Spirit, a couple of Electric Spirit riders. Might be interesting to see if they're working together, but they're getting back on. And it seems quite comfortable now. They're definitely going to make it. It's just a case of when does that gap get bridged. And interesting to see with HCT and dirt riders. I don't want to say kind of sitting towards the back, because it's very well that after that climb they're just struggling. But again, they're dangling back, and it's just making it a little bit easier for that chase group to get back on. And we've got a very tight chase group. See a couple of the Rhino, one of the Rhino guys, and 3 of the Electric Spirits towards the back. They might just want to be a little bit cautious here as the group gets back on, because those lead riders who are doing a bit of the work to pull them back together are going to get the advantage of the draft, and you start to see splits open. And it's one of the most gutting things to see when 3/4 of a breakaway gets back into the lead group, but a couple just get left. And when you're this stretched out, as you see, especially with the old pack dynamics, which we're not using today, we're onto the pack dynamics 4. As soon as you break that 5-meter gap, which it looks like we have right there, it's very easy for you just to get dropped off when you're so close to the group. Look, it seems like both those riders have got on. Might be a bit harder for Reynolds there, but she looks like she's going to make it. There we go, back on. That's really good for them. They managed to get it back. Still up 37th in this front group. So plenty of points on offer, and a big drop off in the points to those who finished towards the back of it. So plenty of opportunity and plenty of reason for certain riders and teams to push the pace. Take a little bit of a look at the group now, so you can see lots of dirt riders, a couple of Electric Spirit. I think they've got all 4 still there, so all 4 point scores are going to be in the front group. But HCT are definitely up there. 7 riders in the front group. Maybe haven't got a ton of points, especially not compared to Team NL, who have been crushing the segments. But just having that number of riders in the front group can make a real difference towards the end. See Loro just pushing the pace out for them. Not doing too much, but just every little on the front helps. And especially when you've got 3 riders whose scores aren't going to count towards the team, you want to be thinking now, how are we going to best utilise them? Who's most likely to score points? Realistically, you probably want to have 5 targeting the finish, but that leaves, and you know, in some teams maybe at 6, depending on how you set up, what your numbers are, how people are feeling. It's very fortunate to say when there's some teams with 2 or 3 riders out there, or just 1 in the front group. But for those teams with 6, 7 in the front group, you want to be thinking about using some of those riders to benefit the team, whether that's pushing the pace, whether that's pushing on the climbs, going for a long breakaway, which means, you know, sacrificing a lot of energy, potentially getting dropped when you get caught, but taking that risk to make something happen. So again, a couple of riders just dropping a little bit deep here. So on the Strider riders and then the HCC. You want to be careful on that. A lot of people, they get to the top of the climb, they just ease off. It's really important just to maintain it. Make sure you get back up to speed. You want to be working kind of the same speed as the front if you can. Trying to at least not be going much slower than them, so it's stretching out. You want to be kind of I mean, ideally you'd be closing the gap to them, so when you hit the downhill you can really rest. But you certainly want to be doing the same speed or only slightly slower. And they're going to be pushing, they're going to keep the speed over the top. So until you see 42, 43, you want to keep working. Keep treating it like a climb. Because that acceleration phase is where you make up time. Those are really common with the TTTs on Thursday. It's one of the key parts where you make up time on other teams. When you're where you're changing speed, that can be slowing down, that can be accelerating. If you do it less when it's slowing down or quicker for accelerating the teams, you can get a decent chunk of time, and it's more watt per kilo efficient. It's going to take you less energy to do that, especially if you're a punchier team or riders, than it will just to sit at a slightly, fractionally higher base pace the rest of the time. All the TTTs are just about finding it. This season we don't have a strict TTT race. We have an ITT as the final race of the series. It's 18 kilometers, might be 18.7 kilometers of the Zwift Gran Fondo course, which will include the Volcano. I think one of the shorter kickers. But we also have a TTR, which I'll save any spoilers for you to find out and check out on the Dirt Racing website. But it's a different format of racing. I'm not sure it'll been ever seen before. And it might create a bit more of an interest and at least something different. It's one of the issues we've seen before. So there's a big advantage to teams in the team time trial in this series. You can get 8 riders out. And obviously it's only 4 that count towards a team in most races. But if you can get 8 out in a team time trial, the 4 riders over the line are going to be greatly benefited if you're sharing rotations between 8 riders versus just 4 of you constantly going at it. If you're doing, say, 30-second intervals, 1 minute 30 rest versus 3 minutes 30 is really significant. Especially at the pace some of these guys will be going and girls will be going. So follow it up again. There's another kind of tame. I say tame again. You know, it's hard. These people are working and putting in effort, but it's relatively tame for what they are definitely capable of. No one's really going for anything, doing anything interesting or trying it. And I just want to see the likes of. Seems to be someone that looked like a WCC there in a green kit. Slightly confusing. But this is some of the HCT rides, which is the rest of the team in green. Obviously, yeah. I'd like to see the likes of them, especially with the extra riders, just trying something. Got nothing to lose. 3 rides you won't count. Just try something slightly different. Go long. Give it a risk. At this point in the race where you have this kind of slight lull, you get much more of riders checking out the watt per kilo figures, checking out the sprint stats, and all the information on ZwiftPower of the rest of their competition. And it's such a vital feature of Zwift racing, having ZwiftPower, especially the live thing, because you know you see the sign-ups, but you never know who's actually going to turn up. I'm very guilty of signing up for races and then deciding, nah, really don't fancy it. Possibly not even unsigning up on Zwift, but just not ending up going. And that can really affect your planning for the race sometimes. If you have a top sprinter who doesn't turn up, or someone with crazy watt per kilo numbers, you know, you're going to have to totally change it on the fly. And how you pace an effort. So you see riders mid-race, especially when there's a lull. It's very common in Fuego flats. You'll either get lots of people chatting in the comments in-game, and so you've had very little of that today, or they'll be checking out ZwiftPower, seeing who's around them, seeing who's left, working out, you know, what it's going to be like in the sprint. Look at these numbers, especially the sprint numbers, and it's a course that favours raw watt per kilos. They've got a couple of dirt riders up there. A couple of rhino guys. I'm not sure if it's a target for rhinos. I feel almost about saying, but they generally have a lot of stronger riders, especially in terms of sprint numbers and raw numbers, which is great to see. And so they tend to be very much up there if you come to a downhill or very short uphill finish, where it plays into their hands. whereas flatter finishes or long uphills tend to play into the watt per kilo hand, where you can have that little burst of acceleration. And that's why it's interesting. You see a lot of B riders racing up a category, or used to, and racing in A, because a lot of A finishes tend to go quite long. And so if they're at the top of B and have a really strong sprint, it means they probably have a relatively high 1 minute power. And in A races, the finish tend to go from around 30 seconds to a minute out. It's not max effort, but you're looking at, 6-7 watts per kilo for 20 seconds or so, and then a 10-15 second max out sprint. And so where those riders who are slightly heavier in B, they have a bit of more of a chance of sticking with the front A groups, tend to do quite well with those raw powers, because they have time to kind of ramp it up, build a lot of speed, and then fly through the front of the group. Whereas when they're actually sometimes racing in B, or say C riders in C, there's a lot more benefit to having that jump, that high raw watt per kilo figure, and being able to kick quickly enough that no one can react. Especially when the sprints get a lot shorter, and tend to find as you come down the categories, sprints get shorter and shorter when it actually turns into a sprint. Although as you get even further down, it tends to be more of a longer attacks. People going solo on certain courses, especially the hillier courses, Yorkshire, New York, you tend to see in the lower categories more of a solo effort, breakaways, small groups, than you would in the higher categories, where there's still plenty of draft. Around the likes of B, we have the whole range obviously here today. B riders, C riders, D riders. No A's sadly, although I'm sure the D's, C's and B's are very much appreciating that. But it's nice having this vast difference with the with the Zwift racing app ranking system, which is ranking based on your racing results, not just on one single metric that can be manipulated, shall we say. So looking at the watt per kilo numbers, we've got Joel Flitton. It's one of the favourites up there, and I'd probably put him down as one of the favourites for the race today, riding for the Dirt Condors. Say we can spot him, but with the riders in their team kit, it's hard to make them out from each other. So one of the things that you pay attention to, especially when riding a TTT, trying to have different hairstyles or different helmets, different sock colours, anything, so you know the difference between each of your members. That's one thing you're always trying to watch out for, seeing who you think your main opposition is going to be, what kit they're wearing, how can you identify them. One of the perks for those who have unlocked the Tron, or whose opposition, shall we say, has unlocked the Tron, tend to spot which colour they're on and try and keep an eye on it. We've also got Chris Reese. Again, most of the top sprinters in this category, well, not in this category, I should say, but in this field today, tend to have strong raw numbers as well as watt per kilo numbers. It's definitely going to play into their favour. See the likes of Chris Reese, WCC, up there, and it would have been Chris Rothwell, but I think he's been dropped off the back now. It's going to be tough for him, but it's one of those things, his pace has been quite high. See most of the front group holding between 3.1 and 2.7, 2.6 watt per 2.7, 2.6 for those 100 watts per kilo. 26 watts per kilo for 35 minutes might be excessive. You probably have seen it somewhere on Zwift. I'm sure there are riders out there claiming to have done it. That's much more reasonable numbers. It's very nice to watch a race and not feel like, oh, this person shouldn't be in that category, this person shouldn't be there. I'm not worried about people who have been sandbag cruising. It's one of the great things about this series and why I'm loving the uptake of the Zwift racing app. So you don't have those kind of nags, when you're doing badly, you're getting dropped off the back. There's no other excuse apart from yourself. I think most of us are guilty of it. Whenever something goes, well, not whenever something, but whenever we're not doing so well in a race, there's always, oh, other people aren't playing this game fairly, not doing the same as you, etc. And there's none of that here in the Dirt Racing series, and that's what's so fantastic about it. I'm seeing a couple of the HCT or WCC rider with Alpe here. Getting towards the front. You can see if they're going to try anything. Just approaching lap 4. Well, I think we're on lap 13 now. Let's finish lap 14, so it's not too far to go to the finish. I'm going to see people possibly thinking about any long breakaways. And the 15th penultimate lap. Not the 15th penultimate, but on the 15th lap. There's FTS up the climb, which is what we're going through now. And so plenty of points off that, and so going for a breakaway sacrificed a lot of points you possibly might get on there. That's again, nice thing about this, we have riders who might be more suited to a long breakaway than pure sprinting up here. See Buffy pushing it very hard for the down dirty condors, but riders straight away on in their tail. Again, while the group's been a bit spread out, looking at the mini-maps, always really useful. You can see that there's a nice long string. It's still all together. I think it's just fatigue starting to kick in. We've had a lot of lapped riders now. Because it is a relatively short lap, looking like 2:48 at this pace. 2:50 a lap. So yeah, there's quite a few lapped riders sitting in this group. But we're still 30, 40 riders strong. Two more. Oh, there's a little group of 3. It's that group of 3 chasing down that we saw earlier. Just holding it out together, still staying connected. And they've done very well holding onto that front group for as long as they could. Let's look for this nice, tight front group again. So we're coming into the final few laps. So 3 to go. See, one of the riders up the road looks like it's one of the Rhino riders. I don't think that's a lapped rider, though I could very well be wrong. Try and speed our way through. Zwifts, while they've made a lot of updates recently, which we're very much appreciating, haven't quite nailed down the ability to commentate and stream and how easy it is to swap between groups and riders. Not that I'm plugging it, but you know, Eric's watching, either of the Erics. Little word in. And get some development going would be fantastic on that. So for those wondering what's coming up in the next few weeks, in the mornings in terms of coverage, I was hoping to be riding, but I'm going to be hopefully de-essing or potentially riding the later races in the Platinum Plus division, so you'll get a bit of a recon of the course. For those doing it and see people really sending it in now, so this will be possibly the FTS segment, didn't think it was. Might be sure to see Fuller taking it from Dan and Reese. Really strong efforts there. 16.95, very good. This division, see them just carrying on a bit, maintaining that pace through the line. So sorry, that was the FTS segment. It's the second time today I've missed it. But going back, see the group's very spread out, and so this is where we'll see, especially in these kind of categories and the likes of the silver 1, 2 and 3s, the riders just pushing on here and really breaking the group apart. It's just one lap to go when they get through that start-finish banner. See this big, absolutely Dan there, just struggling for the Condors. You put in a huge shift for that sprint. So well, for the segment, but it is a sprint when it's 15, 16 seconds long. He's just dropping back to the group behind. HCT are working together at the front. A couple of Electric Spirit guys there, a couple of dirt riders as well. It was important for those riders they can get back to the leaders, and they've managed that. Again, this lead group's a couple of SDW guys, a couple of dirt guys. I think they try and work to separate it, because Team NL as well, highly represented. I think maybe one of them would have just pushed the pace a little bit more, but it looks like we're going to have that full group all back together as you're going into the last lap. one thing that you've got to watch out for in this final lap. Some of these riders are lapped in this front group, so they're going to be going for that FTS score. They're in the front group, so they know they've got the advantage of the draft. It's going to be quick up there. And so the pace will be very high up that climb. So if I just go see Murphy just pushing off the front. And Potter for Electric Spirit. Murphy for Electric Spirit, Potter for WCC. But again, it's just a little zig, getting towards the front and then settling back in. So as you come around into the downhill, you want to see riders just sitting mid-pack now, getting a bit of recovery. Just come from an FTS segment, they've worked hard. They need to recover before we get into the finish, for that minute and a half or so effort for them. Coming to just get the finish points just up here on the screen, just so you can see the variation. See, they're very deep, bit of a benefit for the podium. And every 10 places drop, so we're entering the segment. See a couple of riders pushing hard. SDW really going for it. C. Martinez. So he's on the lap rides, as we said, going all in for FTS, really kicking it. He's got his teammate Clinch. So this way you can see lapped riders kind of working for their team there. If Martinez there can lead out Clinch. Clinch can do a little bit less, just sitting his wheel. It's going to break him away from the group. You see him just not quite able to do it. See Fuller, he's been strong throughout the race for Rhino, just taking it away. As you see in every lap with Fowler, there's been attacks on this downhill. So it's going to be a bouncy. The group there, it's all massed together. It's very tight. It's very much in touching distance for these lead riders. It's going to be about if someone can create separation. So you want the SDW riders, Clinch, just holding the gap between the two, bridging it over. A couple of riders behind him from HCT. They want to get across this gap, work together. See Roberts starting to send it. So this could be long for Roberts is going to hold that. He ramps it up again. See their guest at the front. Little kick. This is where we go. We want to see people starting to sprint from here. It's nice and tight at the front. See Roberts going all in for HCT. Reese is going. He's been up in there all the time. SCW guys going, but it looks like it's going between Roberts and Reese unless someone's coming from deep. And there we go. Reese is taking an absolute monstrous sprint there. 900 watts and Reese comes through for first. Roberts will have taken second. S. Miller third. Trotman fourth. We've got a host rides back. A couple of NL guys there. A couple of dirt guys. Slightly disappointing, I'd say, for dirt condors there. I'd like to see him a little bit higher up. Again, really good performance around the block. Team NL doing well, maybe not up as they were in the first few laps, taking plenty of points in the segments. Not quite as strong a finish. But again, they've got solid points there, packing it out. HCT again, doing well. Big points up the road from others. So we'll see if we can get on the finish results for you, see how quickly they'll come up on Zwift. On ZwiftPower even. Just take a look over. Okay, so we don't quite have the results. We'll talk through what we saw on the line. So the early breakaway, HT guys were trying to bridge across, but again, it was all about that climb. Really important that people got to the front, stuck towards the front, and especially in these slightly slower categories, that heading the distance, doing the hard work on the climb, paid real dividends. Just got one more update coming. And there we go. Should get the results on the screen for you now. So as you saw, you had Chris Reese from WCC Wobble Cycling Club taking the win. That's going to be really vital for them. We had Louise Potter also doing well for them. They had a couple of riders off the back. Team NL doing really well as a team. 3 riders in that top 10. It's going to be really valuable points for them. And they were crushing the segment, so I'd expect to see them probably taking first for the stage. Then Mikhail Stucker, Pain Cave Heroes, 7th. Fuller from Rhino, saw strong sprints, doing really well early. He pushed possibly a bit too early. Got caught on the front on the downhill and never fully recovered from it. Mike Trotman, HT, and Kieran Robertson second. What's great to see is we've got such a variety, loads of C riders in that front group. And it's predominantly C riders and the Bs. Not totally dominating. It goes to show how well this system's working. Now, we do have the Ds towards the back, but you didn't expect to see that. especially with the difference in speed that it makes going from, say, 2.5 up to 3.2, and then especially up to 4 watts per kilos in terms of raw speed on Zwift. And we'll get another update for you, see if any more have come through going down. See, Dirt managed to pack out the mid-order, some good points for them. Interesting to see how they stack up overall. Team Electric Spirit, Kirsty Rounds, Catherine Murphy doing very well, Tom Walsh, and then Andrian Cotton. Apologies for my terrible pronunciation, you'll have to get used to this. Coming down to round up their 4th rider across the line. So end up with good points, 34th, and that's what's really going to come to tell. See Team NL down 26 for their 4th rider. That has a real impact, making sure that you're strong as a team. That 4th rider really makes a big difference. So looking forward to future weeks. Next week we're going to have this new format, the TTR. We're going to be on New York's Knickerbocker, 32.7 kilometers. Be a fantastic race. Very bumpy, a big variety of the categories. As I mentioned, I'm going to be covering the Platinum Plus in the Atlantic slots. In the EMEA Central slot, I'll be covering Platinum 1.5. And then in the same slot as we are today, I'll hopefully be covering Gold 1. So we're going to vary who we cover through that each week. Then Stage 3, we've got the Muckley in Scotland. Some of you, I heard an occasional rumour that some of you have seen enough of Scotland, which is very upsetting to hear from as a Brit. But back to Scotland we go again, and Muckley's a great course, a nice kind of mix with climbs, sprints, a whole host of segments. That'll be a great points race coming up Stage 3. Stage 4, we're back onto Chain Chomper. Of course, you've probably seen a few times by now. Curry Island's going to be almost pure climbing. It's either downhill or uphill. And we've obviously got the dirt to come into play. So interesting to see if we have a few different tactics on that. Most of the downhill being on dirt as well, but then we've got a bit of a road section linking the two. We're going to see what the bike kind of choices are there. Then we go into our final stages, 5th and 6th. Both joint stages, one run after the other. We've got the Champs-Élysées. 3 laps, maybe 4 laps. I'm not totally sure. 16.9 kilometers. And then the Zwift Gran Fondo ITT to finish it off. So I'm going to be covering all of that for you. I'm going to be at the norm time about 2 hours before right now. And then at the same slot as we did now, covering the 2 different EMEA slots with commentary. So please come join next week if you're interested. And thanks very much for watching.